Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 49. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving. Dave, we are moving on into December and really down the playoff stretch for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and it's Black Friday. Happy Friday to Black Friday to everybody out there. Hopefully you're out there safe today. I know it's been raining here in Vegas, so obviously don't look forward and not going to get out into that today.
You're not in the lines with everybody.
No, none of that whatsoever. Going to have a nice quiet weekend around the house here. That's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, a little later in the show, we're going to have Scott Petrak on to talk Browns at about a half hour or so. But before we do that, we'll get to the Steelers-related things with the injury report released on Thanksgiving Day. Juju Smith-Schuster, only player not practicing with a knee injury. It was clarified that he had been cleared from concussion protocol, but the knee issue is still the one bugging him. Artie Burns, James Conner, both limited. Burns with the knee, Conner with that shoulder. Alejandro Villanueva goes from limited on Wednesday to practicing full on Thursday. So very unlikely Juju plays. I really doubt that Conner plays too. Is that kind of your read of the situation as well?
Yeah, excuse me. Look, we'll see what happens with Artie Burns. I don't think that's too pressing on people who listen to the show. What turns out happened with him? The good news is he is back on a limited basis. He was limited twice last week. I don't think he ended the week listed as doubtful there. I know James Conner moving in the right direction is a positive sign. However, you go back to what he said on the radio this past Monday. It sure sounds like he's planning on not playing in this game. So just probably out there moving around on Thanksgiving more than anything. So I think really the one to watch, obviously on Friday, when the injury report gets released later today, is Juju Smith-Schuster. Been out of concussion protocol for quite a few days now. Obviously, he wouldn't need a lot of practice, you wouldn't think, from a schematic standpoint. But obviously with that being a knee injury and him still wearing a brace as of a few days ago, that's concerning. So I'm not expecting him to play, but I've been wrong on these things before, so we'll see what the Friday injury report tells us. But I'm definitely not expecting. It'd be a surprise to me if James Conner plays.
It would be a huge shock to me, but as you mentioned on the previous podcast, I thought it was a really good point, is that this time around, even assuming that Conner remains out, you're going to have Benny Snell, you're going to have Kerrith White Jr., two guys that were not part of the first Browns matchup where your offense couldn't do anything, your run game included. So is your level of confidence in the run game, I assume it's higher than the first Browns matchup, but I guess where is your level of confidence in this run game to be successful for Sunday against the Browns, sans James Conner?
A lot higher than it was the last time they met the Browns in Cleveland. I think Benny Snell did a good job of sparking things this past week, and Randy Fichtner was quick to point that out. That Devlin Hodges provided a spark, but so did Benny Snell there. I honestly believe Mike Tomlin when he says they didn't know exactly what they were going to get out of Benny Snell from kind of a snap count carry load aspect of it, and even his longest run of the game was late late in the game and iced it on top of it there. So I think that's a good sign as well too. We've already talked and written and discussed how the Steelers had their guards on the move, most notably David DeCastro. I thought that was a good sign, and the young kid in Kerrith White. I'm now interested to see more of him, just based off of a few carries of his, because that's something that really the Steelers' running game has missed this year all the way around. Not only him, but Benny Snell Jr., the fact that they've make guys miss at the line of scrimmage initially, and then they get some yards after first contact there. So I am based on where we were a couple weeks ago ahead of the game against the Browns, I'm far more optimistic, and I'm not concerned one bit that James Conner might miss this game. Hopefully the Steelers can get out this weekend with a win, get James Conner another week healthier there, because Lord knows the attrition with the running back position and how that works in the NFL there. But right now, that's a long answer to I'm excited to see what this Steelers running game can do the second time around against the Browns.
I'm with you. I'm more confident, but you get the scheme's got to be right. Hopefully, Kareth White gets more integrated in this playbook. Obviously, he should. The more time he spends with this team, and use him on the perimeter, get him the ball in space. I mean, some of those power concepts worked really well, absolutely. But I think he's a guy that can threaten the edges a lot better than anyone else on this roster. So an element you didn't have in the first matchup. But you make a great point about Benny Snell and what Randy Fichtner had said, and it's a good segue into the coordinators speaking on yesterday, I believe it was, Randy Fichtner and Keith Butler. And Fichtner was asked, what did Benny Snell give you last week? And Fichtner said, quote, "Oh man, you talk about the spark. Now we can talk about real spark." And that was in response to a question about Hodges offering a spark earlier in the interview. And so Fichtner goes on to say, quote, "His spark and just his run demeanor. The idea of coming back from injury and not blinking from the first time he stepped on the practice field through the game. He ran with strength. He ran with power. I think he'll feel better in time. I know that happens with most guys with injury, especially when you get operated on. You're look kind of a little hesitant. I didn't see anything like that." So Snell, a really impressive performance. And just because it jogged my memory whenever you mentioned it. Snell, 21 carries, the first Steelers rookie running back to have 21 carries since Le'Veon Bell. And since the merger, only 4 rookie running backs have had 21 carries in a game in their rookie season. That's Franco Harris, Tim Worley, Bam Morris, Bell, and now Benny Snell. So I thought the way he responded to the volume of snaps and the volume of the work was just as impressive as the work itself.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's an interesting stat you throw out there as well, too. And the fact that ran just as good late as he did early was a positive sign. And you obviously want, especially the way this offense is right now, the way the defense is playing, when you get into a later game situation, fourth quarter and beyond, if you have the lead, it's imperative that you do protect the football, milk the clock, and run successful on top of it. So that was a good sign there too. The only thing that I kind of worry about Benny Snell Jr. Is right now is kind of his kind of his psyche and all like that. This is a guy that was showed up in Pittsburgh after the draft, was kind of boisterous. I like to say, using the Ricky Henderson third person, a lot of Benny Snell football, this, that, and the other. And then I think he got a little bit of a dose of reality right there, at the start of the season. And then of course you go into the middle of the season where, he's, to me, he's real, and I've seen a clip. Excuse me, a clip of this on Twitter as well too. Real distrustful of the media right now, especially kind of stemming from that arrest of his earlier in the season there. This is a guy that I think has got a kind of a slap in the face of how things are in the NFL here. And I know they just put up this interview that he did with Missy Matthews on Steelers.com a few days ago. Seems back upbeat again after a positive game. I think he's going to have to learn that an NFL career is going to include some highs and some lows here. So, but with anything, I'd much rather him coming into this game off of a high, which he's on, which he should be on right now with his performance and all, as opposed to him coming off of a game where just didn't run well. So really, just his psyche on a game per game basis is right now the only thing that I'm concerned about. Because look, I mean, this is a guy that I did some statistical studies on him as far as short yardage and stuff goes. After he was drafted, he's a good short yardage back coming out of Kentucky. We knew that. We didn't. The thing that didn't stick out as far as his college stats was his 10 yards or more carry percentage. He just wasn't a big a big play run producer in college for the volume of carries that he had compared to other backs, most other backs that and especially some that ended up being drafted ahead or after him this year. But the thing is he has shown so far in limited work in the NFL with the Steelers is that he can produce those big runs. Heck, he's got 3 of them over 20 already. He leads the team in that, and I forgot to look back how many over 10 he has. So that's a positive sign there, and he ought to feel fresh about right now as well, even though he's coming off of a 21 carry performance.
Right, and the thing that I think is really attractive about Snell, and one of the things they liked about him coming out of Kentucky was, his ability to carry the load, to be the guy. I mean, he helped put Kentucky on the map. He got there at a Kentucky program that was not known for football at all. It was a total basketball school, and by the time he leaves, they're a 10-win program. They beat Florida for the first time in 31 years. They beat Penn State in a big bowl game, and they're not afraid to give him the ball late in the game to close it out. They did that repeatedly in college, and so they did that again on Sunday against the Bengals. So I think he embraces and wants the ball in those kind of big-time moments. So very exciting for Benny Snell, but as you said, he's got to be able to keep that going. You don't want to have the peaks and valleys. You want to have consistency for himself, obviously, but also for the health of the team in a run game that is really dying for any sort of consistency.
Yeah, and look, this is a big game this week. I mean, I don't know when everyone, it seems like everyone this year has been that, especially with the start they got off to. But, man, this one is a really big one. And you can bet Mike Tomlin's, reminding the rookie about it, and for him probably not to get too high about last week. Last week was last week. But if he can, when you got a different quarterback in there again this week in Devlin Hodges, and you're already expecting your defense to do what they normally do here, and that it's going to include this has got to include a perfect performance almost by the offense, especially when it comes to the running game and not turning the football over, which is hard to believe. It's been as many games as it's been consecutively that the Steelers have turned the football over. You have to go all the way back to the Carolina Panthers game last season.
Goodness. What's the number on that?
What's that? 18? 18
Yeah.
consecutive games that this Steelers offense or the Steelers have turned it over at least one time. However, if you look in the last 9 games, I think it is that the Steelers have not turned the football over. They're 8-1 in those games, and look. You don't have Ben back there to save you. So, all the way around, Benny Snell, all the eligibles, everybody, this is the week to end that streak of turnovers and to continue on with a near 50% success run rate with a guy like Benny Snell Jr.
Right, and you saw what happened in the matchup 2 weeks ago. 4 turnovers. That's really what did you in. The defense played well, but when you turn the ball over 4 times, give the Browns short fields, that loses you the game, essentially. So you mentioned Devlin Hodges, and Fichtner asked about Hodges and his response and the level of confidence that they have in Hodges and Hodges' confidence in himself. And Fichtner says, quote, "Well, he plays with a lot of confidence for sure. You wouldn't be able to tell he's from a small school. It's not like playing against big schools when he was at the small school. I think he plays with a sense of ease. I think he plays with a sense of rhythm. He's been good when we asked him to be good for us." So well said on Hodges. He's a guy that certainly has more outward confidence, and his play is just better. And again, it all goes back to them, I think, making the right decision. Did you have any issue? I saw some people take issue with it on Twitter and social media that Tomlin announced the move to let the Browns know that Hodges was going to be the guy. I didn't have a problem with it. Did you have an issue with Tomlin being so transparent about the situation?
I mean, personally, I would have waited, but I don't know what good it does you. I mean, they were going to get a player walking off the practice field on Wednesday, right, or even Tuesday to say that they've been told who is what, and why have the quarterback's question and add one layer to it this week of them trying to claim they don't know when obviously they do know. The writing was on the wall. What was going to happen with this? So no. Overall, I don't have an issue with it. Look, they're both young quarterbacks. It's not a big deal. Personally, I would have let it come out a day later, maybe more organically. But yeah, overall, I didn't lose any sleep over it.
Right, I didn't either. I'm okay, and it goes back to confidence. I want the players to talk about their confidence, talk openly. I don't want them to be, hiding of that or fearful of it. I want you to have the approach of let's be confident in our guy, and who cares if they know who you're starting. Have the confidence that even with that knowledge, they won't be able to still secure the victory. So I'm with you there. Anything else from Randy Fichtner in his interview you wanted to touch on?
No, I thought I thought overall he handled it okay. Again, I mean, he's saying everything that he's supposed to say. Going back to just talking about the turnovers and how they've really tried to, once again, as you should every week, try to emphasize the fact that you just can't turn the football over. And you had Mason turn the football over, what was it, 5 times in a matter of, I forgot what I wrote, how many actual attempts it was, 30-something attempts from the time he threw the first interception until the time he threw the interception in the game against the Bengals this past weekend. You just can't have that. I mean, because even up until kind of that last interception in the game against the Browns, that was still a winnable game.
Yep.
It felt like, and because of you having the changes that you've had at the wide receiver position, the running back position, really the only continuity you've really had all season when it comes to this offense, knock on wood, has been the offensive line, and even that hasn't been great at times there. So. Look, I mean, it's understandable. Is all of this kind of fallout from Mason getting conked over the head and whatnot, and all the comments that happened, probably to some degree. But I mean, he, without a doubt, he wasn't playing good ever since the game against the Rams there. So it's understandable why the move was made. But once again, as I said on the other show, now look, don't have Devlin Hodges feel like he's got a quick hook on him either. Right. You've made your choice now. Now let's go with it there. And my only real concern with Devlin Hodges right now heading into this game is just some of that fearlessness being maybe too much fearlessness when it comes to going down the field there. You got to be kind of select and not just wing it up just to wing it up. Make sure your guy has nobody's going to get on him, I don't think, for putting up a 50-50 ball kind of situation and his guy not coming down with it and the other team coming down with it versus some of the throws that we've seen him made, one already being intercepted and a couple others that probably should have been intercepted there. Turnovers are going to be a huge aspect of this game. If this means kind of keeping them in that, kind of that Chargers game plan, if you will, and if they can run the football better, then so be it. But at some point, he's going to have to throw the football in that 7 to 12 yard range, and that's the one that I've been harping on most of the season there. You're going to take your deep shots during the game, your 3 to 4 deep shots a game. I think regardless, it's how a quarterback can perform past the 5 yard mark is going to be different. So, like I said, we now move on from evaluating a guy in Mason Rudolph to evaluating a guy in Devlin Hodges for how many games.
You're right. That fearlessness is a double-edged sword. It can be very effective and let you push the ball downfield and create big plays, but it can also be a risk for turnovers against a talented and aggressive Steve Wilkes coach Browns defense. And for Rudolph, they're saying all the right things about him and his ability to bounce back. But hey, what can you say? You just say the right thing. You pay lip service. You really don't know where his future is going to lie.
Yeah, you have to wonder. I mean, there's has he taken his last snap this year? I would bet that he hasn't, but. We'll see. When it comes to that, I doubt. I mean, look, if Devlin Hodges goes in here, and I don't care if he throws for 180 yards and 1 touchdown and no interceptions, and the Steelers win, well, then that's good enough to continue on to the next round. This is a it really don't matter right now. I don't think past this week anyway. You have got to get this win. This isn't a must win, but it whatever the next tick down from that is what this game is.
Yep, 100% agreed, Dave. To flip to Keith Butler, not a lot from him, I didn't think, in the interview, talking to reporters yesterday, but he did talk about Bud Dupree. Now, his game's matured, now got a career high in sacks in a single season with 7. Butler says, quote, I think it's just because of what we've expected him to do and how he fits into the framework of our defense. I think that he's got a better understanding of that as the years have gone along. He didn't all of a sudden arrive at that this year. He's been doing that the last 2 or 3 years. I know we've talked about Dupree before, but again, I think just the health has been such a key factor in him unlocking the talent that I think he's always had. I think being in good health goes a long way for that. Yes, I know the contract and those other factors do play a role into it, but either way, you're getting awesome production from Bud Dupree.
Yeah, and look, one aspect, and we'll talk to Scott about this in a little bit, is they could have a different left tackle over there this go around, because Greg Robinson showed up Wednesday for the Browns at their facility and self-reported concussion-like symptoms and was placed into protocol. He has not practiced yet, so this could end up being a pretty, well, I mean, it already is a big storyline, but it could be a bigger storyline. It could be as big a storyline as Bud Dupree wants this to be this week, because if you're the Browns right now, you're going to have to pick your poison. I think about who you want to kind of where you want to spread out your double teams to, because this Steelers defensive front right now is just playing out of their mind right now. And when you throw on top of it that you're going to have an inexperienced, or not an inexperienced, but a step down guy going at left tackle against Bud Dupree, and this is the same Browns team that really didn't pass protect overly well in that meeting a couple of games ago. The only difference was the Steelers defense really just didn't do a good job of containing Baker Mayfield. You can bet their butt they're going to try to improve on that this time. And I think Keith Butler said as much, talking that's been a point of emphasis this week as well, too. So, I mean, Bud Dupree could wind up being the story of this game, and make this this talking about point about the switch at tackle even bigger than what it's already been. It's all up to him.
Right, and the left tackle is Justin McCray, who I know has some experience in the NFL, but I don't think he has much at left tackle. I know we could talk to Scott about that, so that'll be a big test for sure. The last thing I saw from Butler was just talking about communication and the improvement that having a guy like Terrell Lawson has aided in that communication. Butler says, quote, "The biggest thing for us is getting the communication right and being on the same page, and if they do that, then we'll end up being pretty good. Terrell Lawson has done a good job of getting them there. I know there were some minor blips of communication problems in that Browns game, so those are things you have to clean up. Think about the Jarvis Landry touchdown, the Odell Beckham 40-plus yard completion that got down to the 1-yard line that set up a Baker Mayfield touchdown. So it's normally been good this year. It's been a lot better than years past, but that was an issue in the Browns game. It's got to get cleaned up for this rematch.
You might try to give up your explosive plays, and they're probably going to give up a couple in this game too. But you might try to give them up when the ball is beginning on the Browns side of the field as opposed to yours, because I mean, obviously they did a good job of giving themselves a little bit of grass to defend there. But I think didn't I mean, I know obviously on one of them the last time around. On one of the explosive plays, they converted that into the touchdown. On the one to Hodge, didn't they convert that explosive play into a touchdown later on in that drive, or was that a field?
No, it was 21-7. So, yeah, I think it was that set up the Landry touchdown. So I think you're right. The Hodge completion set up the Jarvis Landry touchdown.
All right, so I mean, there you go. We talked about the kind of the study, and I think really the way this Browns team is built right now too. They're really reliant on getting some explosive plays, and especially if they can't get them on the ground with Chubb and Hunt. So it starts with defending those two running backs first and foremost. But if you're going to give up an explosive play, A, don't let it end up in your own end zone. Hopefully, B, it starts on their side of the 50. That way, you still have a lot of grass to defend after it there. So if you look, if they play the way they did more so in that second half against the Browns, they're going to be in a much better shape. But I think we both agreed that you can't give up more than about 16 or 17 points in this one.
Yep, that is Keith Butler's goal. Speaking of Butler, anything else from the interview that you wanted to touch on from Butler?
No, I know a lot of people are spending a lot of time, and I know Matthew wrote about it too, about the whole comment about Vince Williams and the playing time of Mark Barron and all like that. Keith Butler says it depends on how we use him and what we try to set up in terms of our game plan and then how he fits into the game plan. Sometimes he's going to play a lot, and other times he's not going to play as much. Well, that's pretty obvious there, Keith. It depends, just like with Devin Bush. Sometimes he's going to play a lot, and sometimes he's not. It doesn't necessarily matter in our scheme of things. It sometimes is a matter of who they put on the field, and we try to match up with that. Sometimes it depends on the offense that we're playing. Sometimes it depends on whether we got some stuff that we want to use on that particular offense. So we really no clarity there. I know a lot of people are running with that, saying, "Well, look, put why is Barron out there? He's more of the liability." I understand that, but really we don't have a real definitive of why it's happening.
But yeah, I mean, they just like him in dime. I'd just be curious to know why they like him in dime. I understand Butler's point about, their personnel, and that's how you have to respond to. If they're going to play a lot of 11 personnel, you can't play much base, and so Vince's snaps might naturally go down. But I still see Vince as the superior player, the better option, and I still don't quite understand the division of labor, but that's a decision the team's making, and if they're going to continue to play well defensively and win games, they're not going to make any changes anytime soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean, look, and this is a key one this week too. So we'll see how they rotate it out and look at the snap counts after the fact, and obviously look at the final product here.
Right. Okay, Dave. Let's take a short break here, and then come back. We'll talk to Scott Petrak, a Browns writer for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette. Find his work at brownzone.com. Follow him on Twitter at Scott Petrak, Petrak. We'll come back in a second and talk to Scott.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is indeed Friday, and that means we welcome back a beat writer from the opposing team this week, and it's a beat writer we had on just a couple of weeks ago, just ahead of the Steelers game against the Cleveland Browns. I'm, of course, talking about Scott Petrak, been on the show several times. He's the Browns beat writer for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina. I'm going to say it right this time, Medina Gazette. Make sure you check out Scott's work at both those places, and you can find all of it kind of aggregated together on brownzone.com. You should also be following Scott on the Twitter machine at Scott Petrak, Petrak on the Twitter machine. Scott, happy Black Friday to you. What are we going to talk about this time?
I don't know. What do you think we're going to talk about?
I hear you. Look, it's only been a couple weeks. We obviously had you on the show right before the last time these two teams got together, and really the what happened in the first kind of 58 minutes of the game kind of quickly got lost with what happened in the final couple of minutes of the game there, and that's the fact the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph, Marquise Pouncey incident there ended up when Myles Garrett, of course, being suspended indefinitely. Marquise Pouncey got 3 games for it originally, appealed it and got it down to 2 games, and Larry Ogunjobi got 1 game suspension. He appealed that, and that stuck there. I know you're about tired of talking about it now, but how did you view the final few minutes of that game, and how do you think the NFL has handled it since, and what did you think about the whole, the accusations of Mason Rudolph being a racist? Just kind of give us the 30,000 foot look there, Scott.
Yeah, obviously a ton of layers with this story. First of all, it was ugly way for that game to end. From the Cleveland perspective, right after the game, Baker Mayfield says it felt like a loss. And, the Browns haven't beaten Pittsburgh since, 2014. They'd won 2 in a row. Now it's 3 in a row. But for them to say that it felt like a loss just shows you the magnitude of the ball at the end, how severe Myles Garrett's helmet club of Mason Rudolph was. And it really cast a pall over the victory and the team for at least a few days. And the story carried throughout the week, as you guys know, especially with the Myles Garrett, the accusations of racial slurs, the suspension being upheld, all that. It lingered all through last week, and I thought the Browns did a good job of coming out. I know it was Miami, but they came out with enough focus and played a pretty good game and beat Miami easily. I thought all the punishments were a little strong. I understand it. I do. But I personally would have given Myles Garrett 4 games. I would not have suspended Rudolph, just like the league. And plenty of people in Cleveland and plenty of the Browns players thought Rudolph was the instigator and should have gotten at least a game. I would not. I know he had a role in it. I didn't think it excused what Garrett did. Myles Garrett said that. And Myles Garrett, even when he made the accusations of the racial slur, said it didn't excuse his action from, clubbing Rudolph. And I kind of agree with that. I think if, in fact, Mason Rudolph said something to Myles Garrett that it doesn't justify what he did, it explains it. And I could understand where Myles kind of lost his mind because of that. I still would have suspended him. I would not have given him any fewer games on appeal, but I would have started with 4 for Garrett, and I would have kept it there. I thought the indefinite nature was a little bit much. I think you should just be able to put a number on it, right? He's done for the rest of the season. If you want to go 6 in playoffs, that's fine. I don't know why you had to go into next year, but I don't expect it to go into next year anyway. That's what I've been told. So, ugly incident, obviously it adds some element to this game. In this game, Sunday's going to be huge for a number of reasons. But that's kind of how I took it. I've not talked to Larry Ogunjobi yet. I am hoping to talk to him later today and get his take on it. He'll be the only one of those guys, right? If there were, let's call it 4 main participants in the brawl, Ogunjobi's going to be the only one that at least starts the game on Sunday. So I'm interested to hear what he has to say. And, maybe he can corroborate not corroborate what Rudolph may or may not have said, but at least say that, yeah, Garrett told me right after the game what Rudolph said to him, because there's a lot of conjecture out there about why it took so long for Garrett to say publicly.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're kind of at with this thing right now. Look, we don't know Mason Rudolph. Obviously, we have researched him and followed him, and I did a lot of research on his game tape back in out of Oklahoma State, and watched a lot of interviews right after he was drafted. We think we know these guys. I tend to think and tend to believe he wouldn't say something like that, but in the heat of the battle, who knows? But you've obviously have covered Myles Garrett for a couple of seasons now, and I thought it was for him for the accusation to come out the way it did, not immediately, several days after it all, just seemed kind of curious. Who do you tend to believe?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like you said, we don't really know these guys, and I find myself feeling silly sometimes when I think I know them.
Right.
No, any player, and then something happens. You go, oh, that's out of character for him. Well, is it, or do I just know a guy, 2 hours a week? You know what I mean? So
good point.
It's difficult to speak on that. I didn't think, I didn't think Myles was the kind of guy that would get caught up in the end of the game like he did. Now, maybe the explanation is that he was called a racial slur and that made something snap. I don't know that. But I'll tell you this, my inclination is that Myles Garrett's telling the truth. He's always struck me as a thoughtful person that cares about people. And I just don't, my instinct is he's not lying to me. Lying, period. I haven't talked to him since then. But my instinct is he isn't lying. I think the timeline gets a little fuzzy because the Browns haven't come out and said it, but they've insinuated that Myles told them the next day about the racial slur, and he just didn't want to make it public. He didn't want to say that publicly, make that allegation public. He didn't want to make an excuse, and then he used it at the appeal hearing with the hope that it would lessen the sentence and maybe he'd be allowed to play this year. So, and then he didn't expect to get out, and I believe that. I believe that Myles did not leak that. Maybe somebody from his side did without him knowing. Who knows? Maybe he got terrible advice, but my inclination is to believe Myles Garrett. I understand people in Pittsburgh who know Mason, their inclination is to believe him, and I'm not sure we're ever going to get resolution. But, yeah, I do believe Myles. The timeline thing does not bother me ever after having talked to people. I think he said it right away. I don't think this is something that came up 5 days later or a week later. But it's a really damning allegation, and I would hate to think that Myles made it up, just like I would hate to think that Rudolph said it and then would deny it.
Scott, to look towards Sunday's game, the Browns on a 3-game winning streak trying to get back in this playoff race. You beat Buffalo, you beat Pittsburgh, you blew out Miami last week. What do you attribute this team turnaround to, and where is the level of optimism this team can truly make a playoff push?
Well, part of it's the schedule. The schedule's gotten easier, and I know Buffalo looked good again Thursday night, and they're 9-3, and I know what Pittsburgh's record is. But the Browns played a really difficult schedule early, and they played Seattle and New England and the Rams and Baltimore. I mean, they just had a bunch of difficult games. They went to San Francisco. So I think that's part of it. But the second part is Baker Mayfield's playing a lot better. And it usually starts there in this league, right, with the quarterback's performance.
Mm-hmm.
And Baker's not turning it over like he did. He threw his first interception in 4 games last week. I thought against Pittsburgh the first time, I thought he played maybe his best game of the year. I know the numbers weren't great. I thought he showed really good pocket awareness. I thought he bought time in the pocket, which he hadn't been doing as well early in the season. So you got that. Kareem Hunt makes a huge difference. Having that extra playmaker, it's easier to get him the ball than it is to get a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. the ball, right? You don't need to protect as long. You don't need the route to develop. You can turn around and hand it to him, throw him a swing pass, whatever it is. So I think those are the 2 biggest factors. And then you're seeing OBJ involved more in Jarvis Landry. And you're starting to see, the offense looked good against Miami. Jarvis Landry scored 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham scored once. Kareem Hunt scored once. Nick Chubb scored once. But it is against Miami. And you just, until then, you're just kind of seeing glimpses of it coming together. So there's still work to do, but I would say better performance from the offense, starting with Baker Mayfield.
What about Freddie Kitchens? I know the last time we talked, we were pretty critical of him, as were Browns Nation. Has he done anything different? Does he seem more comfortable, decisive, or anything different from Freddie Kitchens?
Well, I think what he's done best is kind of shepherd this team through the difficulties coming out of that Thursday night game. It was not an easy situation for any coach, let alone a first-time head coach. And I think the fact that he got his players ready to play against Miami says something about Kitchens. As a play caller, there's still question marks. There's still plays. Why are they doing that? Why, against Pittsburgh even, they came out throwing when it felt like the opportunity to run the ball. Start the game running, keep it tight, but they came out throwing. So maybe they saw something in the scheme and said, hey, we can take advantage of this. But there just feels like there's not the overall rhythm to the offense or the play calling that you still like. But signs of progress. I've seen the deep ball more incorporated, and I don't know how much of that is play calling versus protection versus Baker feeling comfortable throwing the ball deep, but that started to happen more. So I think how Freddie's handled that Thursday night thing is good, and if they keep winning games, obviously that's going to help him. As an X and O guy, as a play caller, I still think there's work that needs to be done.
When you look at the offense, and maybe it's because of the holiday, kind of the way the week is set up here, kind of lost in the early start of this week was left tackle Greg Robinson showing up on Wednesday and kind of self-reporting the concussion, getting put in concussion protocol, has not practiced, I don't believe, since, and it certainly looks like we're trending towards Justin McCray getting to start at left tackle, and this is a guy that's already started 2 games this year. One of them wasn't great at all. I think one on each side at left tackle and right tackle there. Look, the Browns pass protection wasn't great in the first meeting between the Steelers. The real difference was that you hit on, and Mike Tomlin's hit on this as well too, Baker Mayfield just did a phenomenal job of maneuvering in the pocket, extending the play, and all, and that really was a huge difference there. How big a storyline can this potentially be once we get into Sunday? Alex and I just talked before we had you on. Maybe Bud Dupree will decide how big a storyline this is on Sunday. What is the thoughts on Justin McCray potentially getting a start at left tackle?
It's obviously a downgrade. They started McCray coming out of the bye week because they were unhappy with how Robinson had played in the first, 7 games. And they sat him down, and it was just kind of trying to get through to him. Say, okay, we need you to play better. We're not going to start you. Are you going to wake up now? And I think Robinson's played better since then because it's only a 1-game thing. They thought they saw greater focus from Greg. They keep saying awareness. He's playing with greater awareness. just really acting like more of a true professional. So if McCray had played that well against the Patriots, they wouldn't have gone back to Robinson. But Robinson's bigger. I mean, McCray's an undersized tackle. He's really a guard that they're going to ask to play left tackle. Robinson's a better player. So it is significant. And where I think it could be even more significant if, let's say the Browns try to take a shot play and they ask McCray to block Dupree one-on-one and it turns into a strip sack that changes the game. Like, you can envision that happening, and then it becomes a huge story and has a huge impact. And I think, when you guys know Devlin Hodges, and you guys have watched him more than I have, but I went back and I watched the end of the Cincinnati game. I watched a good chunk of that Chargers game, and he is not throwing the ball downfield, right? And it feels like that Steeler offense, with him at quarterback and without Juju, that they're not going to score. They're not explosive, right? They're probably not going to score a ton of points. So my question to Freddie Kitchens is, does he just say the Browns are going to come in and run the ball 35 times and try to score that way and win 17-13? Or does he try to throw it a little bit and say, let's get a big lead, and then they can't come back? But if you take that chance, you also open yourself up for interceptions and strip sacks. And I think Freddie Kitchens has a difficult decision to make which way he wants to go, how conservative he wants to play Sunday.
When you look at the rest of the injury report there, is Olivier Vernon going to make it back this week? It seems like he's kind of in that questionable category right now.
Yeah, I think I'll get a better idea in a little bit. I saw him practice Wednesday, and some guys go through the individual and they don't really do much. He at least looked to me like he was doing something. He's hitting the blocking sled. So I have some degree of optimism. They cut Devereaux Lawrence on Tuesday, and he'd started the last two games, and I took that as a sign that maybe that means Olivier Vernon's going to be back this week. So my gut is he'll play, but it's far from guaranteed.
All right, when you switch over to the defensive side of the ball, boy, is there a linebacker right now in the league playing as good as Joe Schobert is right now? I mean, this is the guy that we talked a little bit about before that game the last time. This is a guy who's just as consistent as it comes. Now, other than that, and pointing out the obvious there, with Devlin Hodges in at quarterback, my viewpoint on this and overall is if I'm Steve Wilks, I'm coming after. I'm going to come after Devlin a lot in this game because I want to see what he can do, especially if the Steelers aren't able to establish any sort of a running game early. I want to see. I don't want to give Devlin Hodges a chance just to be back there and fade away from limited pressure. I want to go after him and make him make decisions in the heat of the moment. Is that the way you kind of envision this going with the Browns defense?
I think you're right. I for sure think you're going to see the corners playing tight coverage and saying, all right, beat us. Because they, like I said, I've seen a lot of dinking and dunking from Hodges in his limited time. And I think that's what the Browns are trying to take away. All right, we're going to take this underneath stuff away. You go make a couple throws over the top, and if he does, then you change things. I like the idea of pressure. I like it especially because without Garrett, they don't have that guy, right, that teams have to double team, the teams have to worry about. I mean, Villanueva had a tough time with Garrett on Thursday night. He drew a couple of holding penalties, and they just don't have that guy. I mean, Vernon's good, and he'll be a big help. But especially if they're down both those guys, I think how they generate pass rush is by bringing extra, right? And that puts pressure on the young guy. It also puts pressure on the corners, but especially without Juju, I kind of like that matchup too for the Browns corners. I think Denzel Ward's been playing really well. Greedy Williams is playing pretty well. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me is go force the rookie to make some decisions as opposed to sitting back, and maybe letting him throw to his tight end underneath all day.
That sort of leads into my next question, Scott, was how do they replace Myles Garrett? You talked about manufacturing more pressure, but who are some of the names Steeler fans should be aware about? I know Chad Thomas had a pretty decent game against Pittsburgh in the previous matchup. Sheldon Richardson is obviously still there. Ogunjobi's going to return off a suspension. And what are some of the big pass rush threats minus Garrett?
Yeah, they don't have that extra guy, right? Vernon would be the guy, although he only has 3 sacks this year. I think Ogunjobi and Richardson are now the strength of that D-line, and maybe they're even more so of a strength without Pouncey in there. Maybe that's how they can get pressure on Hodges without having to bring a lot of extra guys. But when you bring extra guys, they played the rookie Sione Takitaki a little bit at end last week. They have Brian Cox. He's a young guy. They picked him up a couple of weeks back. He was with Carolina for a little bit. He's Brian Cox's son, the former Jet and Dolphin. And, he showed up a little bit. He's shown up a little bit the last couple of games. So there's not a big name. It's a collection of guys that they hope can get to the quarterback just enough. But they'll bring pressure. They'll bring pressure from Schobert, bring pressure from linebacker Mac Wilson, Demarius Randall, the safety. I mean, that's how they're going to have to generate it. Because if you watch that Dolphins game, and they not only were they missing Garrett, they were missing Vernon, they were missing Ogunjobi. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a lot of time. I think the Browns finished with 4 sacks, but he had plenty of time throughout the course of the day, and they're going to have to change it. And hopefully, for the Browns' sake, Ogunjobi and Vernon should help that. But for the rest of the season, without Garrett, they're going to have to find a way because they just can't rely on that guy anymore.
What about the run defense? I know that's going to be a big thing that Dave and I have talked about. We'll continue to talk about throughout the week as the Steelers couldn't get a run game going in the first matchup, but they have healthier bodies this week with Benny Snell and a new addition in Kareth White. Where have the Browns' run defense? Where has that been the last couple of weeks?
It's gotten better. It was a real weakness for most of the season. And like you said, they played better against the Steelers. Miami's run offense is so bad that I'm not sure that's any kind of adequate gauge.
Sure.
Ryan Fitzpatrick led the Dolphins. But Ogunjobi and Richardson are solid. Chad Thomas is solid against the run. I think he might be a better run stopper than out-and-out pass rusher. Vernon was playing great against the run before he got hurt. And then you look at the linebackers are playing pretty well. So they've made strides, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable saying, yeah, they figured it out. So if the Steelers get a lead, they might be able to hand the ball to Benny Snell a bunch and have some success doing that.
When you look at this game, Scott, does it feel like look, both these teams need this win. Obviously, the Steelers have a game up on the Browns here. Is this a more important game for the Browns or the more important game for the Steelers this time?
I mean, I think it's huge for both teams. I'm not sure Pittsburgh can recover from losing Tua in 3 weeks to the Browns. Given their schedule, given their injuries, given their quarterback position. I got a hard time picturing Pittsburgh at 6-6 getting to the playoffs. And I think it's impossible for the Browns if they drop to 5-7. Not that they couldn't win their Final Four, but they still have Baltimore. They go to Arizona. I think it would be a really deflating loss for them. So I'd give a slight more importance to the Browns just because they're a game back in the standings. But I think it's almost an elimination game. I really do.
All right, Scott, you always have shot straight with us here. The Browns will be looking to register their fourth consecutive win on Sunday against the Steelers in Pittsburgh, a place they last won in 2003. I think Alex was still
in daycare.
In daycare when that happened. The Steelers are also 12-0 against the Browns in Pittsburgh under head coach Mike Tomlin. They've outscored them 323-174 in those 12 contests at Heinz Field, and the Browns obviously have not swept the Steelers in a regular season since 1988. All those numbers are just numbers, and things to kind of make the story sound a little bit better there, Scott. So give it to us. What's going to happen Sunday at Heinz Field, and give us a final score prediction there.
Yeah, I like the Browns in this one. I just think they're playing better. I think they have more weapons. I think they have a big edge at quarterback. If the Browns if the Steelers don't score a defensive touchdown or get set up, inside the 10 or 20, I think they're going to have a hard time scoring, and I like the Browns. I haven't set 100% on the final score, but I see something like 20-16, 20-13, something like that.
All right, sounds good, Scott. Look, we appreciate having you on, especially this close together in between games and all like that. And we'll see if these two teams wind up meeting in the playoffs. I doubt they will. It sounds like it might be one or the other, or none of them, to be quite honest with you there. But we certainly do appreciate your time, Scott. And if we don't talk to you the rest of the season, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, Happy New Year, and we'll get back in touch with you during the off season there. So once again, thanks for your time on the Terrible Podcast once again.
Hey, same to you guys. Thanks for having me.
And again, our thanks to Scott Petrak. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Scott Petrak, Petrak. Let him know you heard him on the Terrible Podcast. We always appreciate that. Again, Browns writer for the Chronicle, Telegram, and Medina Gazette. Follow his work on brownzones.com. I appreciate his commentary. I think it's just really insightful, not only in the Browns matchup this week, but also his reflection on the whole Myles Garrett situation and how the last matchup ended.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he's probably this far removed, tired of talking about it right now. But I mean, it sounds like he's got can't wait to talk to Larry Ogunjobi one last time here, with the holidays and look, I think he's a little bit concerned about what's going to happen there at left tackle. But I think it's not. I don't think it's crazy for him to pick the Browns in this game, and especially if if the Steelers can't get something done with their defense, something we've talked about all year. What's going to happen regardless of since Ben went down? What's going to happen regardless if this team can't get a defensive turnover or two, or even a defensive score in a game? And that's gonna be one of the big things heading into this game.
Absolutely, and so that segues nicely into our preview of this game. We'll start with the Steelers' defense versus the Browns' offense, and it really comes down to, I think, two elements that basically you just touched on, Dave. One, not having the communication issues and busts that they had last week, which burned them again. Odell Beckham Jr., 43-yard catch, that was a coverage miscommunication or a coverage breakdown. The Jarvis Landry touchdown was a communication bust. Can't have those and expect to win this time here against a talented Browns offense. And then also, you got to create splash plays for your defense. That's still going to be the mandate for the rest of the year. Playing just good defense, keeping the score down is not good enough for the Steelers right now. It's good enough for a lot of teams, but not the Pittsburgh Steelers with a struggling offense. So I think having to create splash, keeping Baker within the pocket is going to be a crucial element of it. Those things have to happen for this defense to play the way it needs to play.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they've got a great tandem there in the backfield, and I would expect them. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like, in Pittsburgh on Sunday, but I would expect really Freddie Kitchens and his staff to come out a little bit conservative in this one, with the feeling that look, we're going to bet that their young quarterback and young inexperienced wide receivers make the mistake before we do, and then we're going to pounce on that. I don't think I would advise the Browns to try to go out, especially with the situation at left tackle there, and come out throwing. I think it's a mistake if they do, but if they do, then the Steelers just cannot give up that chunk play. Let's face it, both these guys in Landry and Beckham, those guys can home run you in a heartbeat. And the one thing that really stuck out was how well Baker played when he was able to avoid the pressure there. I mean, look, the third down play to Hunt right before the long touchdown was a great play on his part. Yeah, Mark Barron probably could have done a better job in coverage there, yada, yada. The other one inside the red zone on the touchdown to the tight end. Another aspect of, boy, once you get close to that guy, you better bring him down here, because rush and coverage can only go hand in hand for so long, especially when those talented players that they have there. I think if you can get this in a game when you look at the Browns defense, where you do somehow manage to get them where they're in a obvious passing situation in a 3rd or 7, 3rd and 8 or longer, that's the time you better get after them, because obviously I think both their tackles are liabilities. Really, their whole front, I don't think matches up well against the Steelers front, and them able to run the ball. The more they're able to run the ball, if they can run the ball successfully early, it's going to probably lead to them running the ball successfully late. We talked about how many times it seems like there's been 9-yard runs against them. So the Steelers defense, in my opinion, you got to stop that run early, and you just can't let guys like Beckham and Landry run free, bust or otherwise.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we just have to remember how well this defense played in the first matchup. I mean, they held the Browns to 21 points, and the last 7 came in the final 5 minutes off the Rudolph final interception that put the ball at the 20-yard line for Cleveland. So for the majority of that game, they held the Browns to just 14 points, and that was just really based off of those 1 or 2 coverage busts, which has been unusual for the Steelers this year, the exception to the rule. So I still have a lot of confidence in this defense to play well the second time around.
Yeah, and look, it's going to come down to can they do it? How many more times can they do it?
Yeah.
At some point you would hope that maybe the offense carries the load here, but it's hard to go into yet, really any other game remaining this season. It's just what can the defense do? And, obviously a year ago, this is a defense that while it couldn't kind of manufacture and get the sack, it couldn't get the turnover. They're getting both this year, and they're only what 2 games this year that they haven't recorded at least one turnover.
Right,
and that
Patriots
was
and
the Patriots and the Browns, and obviously those were the 2 games that they had the largest losing differential in there. So you just gotta find a way to get that strip sack like Scott was talking about. You just gotta find a way to get that ball out to jump into the arms of Minkah Fitzpatrick or something. I just cannot see the Steelers winning this game if they don't get like 2 turnovers on the defensive side of the ball.
Do you have an X factor for this game defensively at least? If there's one guy you want to circle, Dupree, or would it be somebody else?
I really think the X factor is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. Split it up. Split it up if you want to and call it a Benny Snell Jr., Devlin Hodges X factor. Those 2 guys, I think, together will decide what happens in this game more so than any other players there, because the offense is going to have to put, I don't know, it just feels like at least 17 points on the board, and I don't view the defense as score. It's hard to predict a defensive touchdown. I mean, it's hard enough to predict defensive turnovers in a game as much as a defensive. Who knows? Maybe special team. We talked earlier in the week. It just it'd be a perfect week for Tyler Matakevich to get his dirty red hand on a punt or something along those lines there. But personally, I view kind of a Benny Snell / Devlin Hodges X factor here.
Okay, well, it's a good time to switch over to the offense. I mean, again, with the run game, I know we talked about it early in the show. I think we both expect more success in the run game. It's hard to have less success than what they had in the first matchup. But are you running power? Are you going to try to get the ball on the perimeter with Gareth White? As you said, Joe Sherbert playing great right now, a linebacker for them. I mean, how do you kind of set up the Steelers' run game to have more success?
Yes.
All the above.
I mean, look, I think you got the slight advantage here is the fact that the Steelers are playing this game with 2 guys that they didn't have in the backfield. Now, it's hard to read too terribly much against a look. I mean, one of the keys I wrote about in my 7 keys before that game was that to run to the Steelers' left side, the Bengals' right side of their defense, because I mean it was just obvious that's where the Bengals had suffered. The Steelers did that. They had some fresh legs in there. They took advantage of it, and boom. But it's hard to read and make long-term prognostications off of just that one game, especially who the opponent was. Now, however, when we went into this game against the Browns the last time, this was a Browns defense that looked like they should have been able to been run upon. James Conner was not healthy. I think everybody knows that from snap number 1 there, and even he had a few runs that were okay that probably should have become longer runs had he been healthy there. He exits the game at the end of the first quarter there, and like it or not, Trey Evans is a practice squad guy. Tony Brooks-James, who's no longer on the team, was a practice squad guy. Jalen Samuels, he just feels like that, just a change of pace guy. Can Benny Snell and Gareth White run early and run successful against this Browns defense and hold on to the football, play keep away there? To me, that it just really is one of the biggest things in this game. I run the power. Yeah, I try to do, I tried a couple of them crack tosses, I think, as well, too, because I want to see, we saw what Gareth White can do in just limited work, not really out in space. We saw it kind of on a power there, and him make a guy miss with his quickness, and then put that leg in the ground, and then get to the outside. I think it's a nice kind of a thunder lightning situation here, but it's only going to work if you block it up and use it early.
Sure. Yeah, no, of course, and I think BJ Finney is one of the guys I'm really circling this week against someone like Ogunjobi. Finney has played well and a guy that you can count on, but does struggle with some bigger body, more powerful interior defensive lineman. Andrew Billings gave him some trouble last week. Ogunjobi's going to be, I think, a similar story this week. So I think Finney's going to be one of the X factors in this game with kind of the extension of the run game, the elongated pass game. How about throwing a screen pass to Garrett White? I'd love to see what he could do with some space as opposed to Trey Edmonds or Vance McDonald or Jalen Samuels who typically throw some of the middle screens to. I want to see Garrett White maybe get a lane and find daylight.
Well, what did you see when you broke him down? How much did they use him that way? Because I didn't look at that aspect of him when Florida Atlantic there. So how did they use him in that situation? And was he successful?
Really, not at all. I think he had 22 career receptions, maybe 10 his senior year. So he just wasn't much a component of the pass game. He split. He was the backup to Devin Singletary, I believe, and just didn't get a whole lot of playing time in general, and just wasn't using the pass game a whole lot. But on paper, I mean, if he can just catch the ball cleanly enough with that speed, obviously that he has, I think he can maybe break out a big play.
And Benny Snell, look, I think we're going to get a look and see, get us about 4 snaps to look at with Benny Snell and pass protection this week as well too, because like I've said it right from the and really wouldn't even matter if it was Mason in there, back in there again this week anyway. I think the Browns should force these young quarterbacks to do something other than sit back. I don't think you just want to let them dink and dunk, because if they're able to, obviously those are higher percentage throws, unlikely to result in turnovers there. I want to see what a young quarterback in Devlin Hodges does when maybe forced to throw for the chains on a 3rd and 7 or be faced with a 2nd and 10 type situation there. How does he react to pressure?
Yeah, and that's a good time to talk about the pass game. If I'm Randy Fichtner, obviously, you want to be careful, you want to be smart with Duck Hodges. Their whole mantra is don't turn the football over. They believe they have a good enough defense that can create big plays of their own, but also can just keep the score down. You don't want to, put that in jeopardy by creating turnovers and by taking risks. But you can't play in a shell either. No team has ever made the playoffs at 6-5 by having their offense go into a shell and in the total protect mode. You gotta let this guy air it out, take his chances, and help scheme it up so these guys can get open and you can create big plays in the offense too.
I want to see Deontay Johnson with the ball in his hands out in space. However you want to do it. We thought we might see it on one of those screens against the Bengals, but Hubbard got a hand on the football. If they want to play man up and if they want to try to stack the box or what have you and make you beat them with their arm, then you got to take advantage of certain pre-snap situations like that. You got a guy in Kane, another week more comfortable in the offense there. You would think that you were going to get some cover one situations where you're going to be able to take a shot at him outside. You got to make those. Let's see some of those. Also, let's try to set some of those up with maybe some of those 12-yard out breaking routes or whatnot. Maybe a back shoulder throw in here. You are going to have to push the football down the field to some degree there. But on top of it, if they give you an opportunity where you can run a quick wide receiver screen on the outside, or look, another part of RPO that we see. I don't know if you watched the Nick Saban breakdown of RPO on the ESPN Plus. That's another great watch. You can run some RPO without some traditional things in RPO. You can run all quick slants. And something that Alabama has done of recent. You just if you 3 outside guys, all guys run in breaking slants, and there ought to be a pre-snap key to let you know where to go with the football there. Little things like that'll allow you to get the football in space or in the hands of players in space to run. I think when we look back at this, if especially if it's the Steelers win, we're going to say, boy, would you look at the yards after catch that the Steelers had in this game.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Deontay Johnson, I think it's going to be my X factor for the game, not only as a receiver. I think Hodges throws that out really well. I think his timing, his placement is excellent. Johnson can run good routes and get on these cornerbacks' toes, so I think he can have some success there. But yeah, Johnson after the catch, special teams are going to be another big element of it too. Kind of worried me back there against the Bengals last week. But you're right. You can't play scared. You got to air it out. And so I think Johnson's got to be a component of that, and they're probably going to throw a couple, 50-50 balls to Deion Kane. So hopefully he can have the same success he had last week.
It just feels like if we're talking about a win on Monday, a Steelers win, we're going to be talking about like a double explosive offensive play touchdown with maybe 70% of it being yak. Yards after. It just has that kind of feel of it there. Not to say that Devlin can't throw the football down the field and get a touchdown that way. To me, to me that's bonus. If you home run a Deion Kane for 40 yards and 40 plus yards in the score, that's just gravy there. I still think though when we're talking on Monday, especially if it's a Steeler win, we're talking about holy moly, would you look 120 yards after the catch, on just 14 catches or whatnot, by the Steelers. It just, to me, it feels like they're going to need a big play or two on offense here, and just not traditional explosive plays. We're going to have to probably see a double or a triple explosive play in this one, and obviously 0 to 1 turnovers.
And my confidence with this is waning by the week, but man, Dave, I would love to see a Vance McDonald big game, and we just haven't seen it this year. Seattle get the 2 touchdowns, but even if it was just some red zone production, that would be huge. I know he hasn't played particularly well this year, and the structure and nature of the offense hasn't helped his numbers. But man, I know Browns have some good linebackers, but I really want just one game from McDonald where he goes over, let's just say even 75 yards in a score, just to have that one standout performance.
No, you just go back to, look, Mason missed him a couple of times, even on the interception in that game the first 2 times. It just kind of felt like if he sees and gets that ball out right when McDonald's right in the middle of the hash marks there, it feels like that goes for 14 or 18 or what have you there. I think there are little things that they can do, especially in the red zone. I already talked about Hodges and maybe booting him out once or twice, some easy throws on the move. Now, sometimes Randy has gone to that a couple times too much, but you can be a little bit more creative in that and maybe go opposite way, the way they did with Devlin Hodges in the game against the Ravens there. A little bit, that a perfect time to roll that out in a short yardage situation, especially in the red zone. Go back and look at that play against the Ravens when Devlin Hodges was in the game there. But I think you can. Especially down the seam and even in some RPO type situations with Devlin Hodges there ought to be that old Heath Miller. If you get that that linebacker biting on that run, there's that quick little pop pass 6 yards vertical, and then see what maybe Vance McDonald can run with that. But look, it's probably going to be a good question. Will any Steelers eligible have 4 or more receptions in this game?
Yeah, it's almost hard to say yes, just based on the recent history of it, but I hope somebody does. Who would look good in a Steelers uniform next year? Jesse James. Maybe the Lions cut him. He's doing nothing up there in Detroit. I know he wouldn't solve all the ills of the pass game. That's not what he is, but I would love to see Jesse James circle back to Pittsburgh.
It just feels like he's not going to see a second season there.
Right.
For sure. And we don't know what, I think we got an email about this later about Vance McDonald and all like that. If you're not going to use him, and you don't know what's going to happen with Vanette and all right. Those two overall really haven't played overly well. Now McDonald's more so, I guess, because of usage, but neither one of them have blocked at the kind of the level that I've kind of was hoping to see, especially since Vanette joined the team. I didn't view him as an overly great blocker ahead of that trade anyway, but this would be a great week for both those guys, especially they're going to use a lot of heavy protection to get the job done in the running game.
Yeah, they have not been good enough. And now again, some of that's excused by the struggles of the offense in general and the quarterback play, but some of that isn't. McDonald's had plays that he could have made that he hasn't, and Vanette I think has been okay, but not really on the radar too much. So just somebody's got to make a play. Somebody's got to step up, whether that's James Washington again, he's playing a great stretch of football, Deontay Johnson or Kane or McDonald. I don't care who it is. It's got to be somebody in black and gold that steps up and makes a signature play.
Yeah, Kane, who you name it. You've got people. Tevin Jones has been in this offense now a couple weeks now. Not any. Look, you line these guys up on a fantasy roster. Most of them, you're wrinkling your nose up at them. But there are going to be opportunities for one or two of these guys to make a big play in this game, and it just feels like once again that you're going to have that play we're going, okay, well, that one really we weren't expecting to get, and the offense holding up their end with that big play along with the defense, yada, yada, no turnovers, that led to the Steelers win here.
Yep, and then special teams, I think, again, you can imagine this one's going to be low scoring for the Steelers defense, hoping to keep the Browns in check, and the Steelers offense not going to be the game to predict them to put up 30-plus points. So field position is going to be a really big battle. Chris Boswell has to do a good job with his field goals, as he's done all year long, but that's always going to be critical components. And then, Deontay Johnson taking care of the football in the return game. Those will all be some of the really underrated but critical elements that determine this game. You got to win the field position battle. You got to convert. You can't turn the football over in those phases of the game.
Yeah, it just feels like maybe a short field or two provided by whoever can mean a lot. Maybe Dirty Red, maybe somebody blocks, maybe whatever. And another thing, going back before we end on this, talking about offense too. Look, if you've got a special trick play right now that you've been holding back, have at it. But I think, one thing that really stuck out to me in watching that game yesterday between the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys was the timing of that trick play, which was really, it looked a lot like that Randall L to Hines Ward. Kind of play there with that. If you have that in your arsenal, sometimes it's not so much about using it. It's when you use it. And I thought the timing of them breaking out that trick play right after the fourth down kind of emotional conversion by Allen, the quarterback there, off of the bad snap. If you're a defense, it's probably the last thing that you're probably expecting in that situation, because it's one of those. And normally you see those things in kind of midfield situations there. So if I think timing can make a big difference sometimes in when to use these trick plays. So I would kind of maybe look for Randy to do that if you get into a big third or fourth down conversion there, third quarter, whatever, you get the conversion there, turn around on 1st and 10 and roll out that trick play. And we promise not to judge it on a results bias.
We'll do our best. Yeah, I'm okay with it as long as Jalen Samuels is not the man throwing the football. I can live with it. Because that we tried that before. It didn't work out. I wonder who the trick play would be. Deontay Johnson played some quarterback in high school, so that might be an option.
Yeah, but I don't know. I would tend to go back more to maybe the Samuels thing. I mean, I know you don't have Ryan Switzer would have been the other guy to kind of maybe do that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't care how. I think you will see a trick play in this one though.
Really? Okay.
I don't know whether or not it's going to be successful, but I think you'll see it.
The crystal ball isn't that clear. Okay, got it. Yeah, anything you can do to try to get an advantage and give your offense a boost, I understand that. All right, Dave, before we get to our picks, including the Steelers game, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully a lot of people got in on that free pick. Bears, boy, what an afternoon of football that was. You had the underdogs, both underdogs winning outright in that game, and then you had really kind of the only the only people really caring about those last couple possessions there at the end of that Falcons-Saints game were there are two kind of people that were interested in that game: degenerates and degenerates, and I was one of them there. But anyway, are you the type of fan that knows football so well that you could choose any game and call it? Well, MyBookie is the place for you because they let you turn all of your sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Between football season, NBA, and the start of college basketball season, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy or girl who likes to bet a little and win a lot, try a parlay of theirs, for instance. If you like a couple of big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. So, if you're going to bet this season, do the smart thing, go to mybookie.ag because no one gives you more ways to win. Tired of watching the games from the couch and nothing to gain? MyBookie wants to get your mind off everything else and back on the game. If you join right now, MyBookie will match your deposit halfway. What that means is all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you get an extra $1,000 in free money to play with. To take advantage of this promotion, go to mybookie.ag and enter promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible. To act like my voice is in every podcast. I'm told my voice is awful. Maybe Santa will bring me a new headset or something for Christmas here. But the only way I can afford that is if you go to mybookie.ag and use promo code TERRIBLE to activate the offer. Once again, it's promo code TERRIBLE to take advantage of MyBookie's generous sign-up offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid. I chased the man around the children's Thanksgiving table late last night to get some money back, and I was successful there. I was wrong about the first two games. I had the Bears minus the points, and I had the Cowboys minus the points. I think you may have had the same. No, you had the Bears minus the points. You had the Bills plus the points, right. And then you had the Falcons minus the points. So I think combined, both of us went 1-2 yesterday.
Not our best. Hopefully we can pick it up for this weekend, Dave. Let's start off the slate of games here. What's our first game to pick?
All right, let me pull them up here real quick here. All right, Green Bay at New York Giants. The Giants at home, plus 7 points against Green Bay.
No, I got to go with the Packers. They're going to bounce back. They're going to figure things out offensively. I know Aaron Rodgers isn't playing quite at the Aaron Rodgers level, but Aaron Jones was unusually quiet last week. I think he bounces back in a big, big way.
Yeah, I don't see how this one stays a touchdown game either. So give me the Packers. Latest 7 on the road. Washington Redskins at the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers at home, laying 10.
Oh, yeah, this one's tough. I mean, you got Haskins versus Allen. I'm going to go laying 10. That's a line for an offense, for a Carolina offense. I don't think it's going to put up a ton of points. I'm going to say Washington covers, but Carolina's still going to win.
I think Luke Kuechly ends up having a good game in this one. He ends up maybe having a couple of turnovers. Maybe he'll even run one back late. I like Carolina to cover this one at home, so I'm laying the 10. Good game. Really, at this point, I don't know if it matters as far as the AFC North goes, but we'll root for San Francisco as Steeler fans just the same. However, boy, that Lamar Jackson, it don't take a lot for him. He don't have to throw the ball that much when they're able to run the football. The Steelers really are the only ones this season that have had moderate success against him. Now, this is a San Francisco 49er front that can get after him. However, will they be able to chase him down when it comes to his legs and keep him contained in the pocket? All that said, San Francisco on the road against the Ravens, and the Ravens have 6-point favorites at home in this one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I've been a big fan of both teams. I think everybody has been this year. I'm going to go with Baltimore just because they feel so unstoppable, and I think they have that just combination offense, defense, special teams. It all comes together. What time is this game? Is this a 1 o'clock or is this?
I think it's 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Man, you think NFL's probably kicking themselves. Put this thing at least at a 4:25, or at least get this thing with some more eyes on it. But either way, I'm going to go with Baltimore.
It's hard to go against Baltimore the way Lamar Jackson's playing right now. I mean, it really is. But I think there's going to be enough people on this thing right now. I don't think San Francisco wins this outright, but man, maybe they can keep it close. Give me San Francisco on the road plus the 6 points, and it'd be a nice little Christmas present if San Francisco for somehow to pull the upset here. Not a big game. One of these teams are definitely going to have their, not mathematically, but for all practical purposes, have their season in. Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. Titans been playing some good, decent football lately, and the Colts look like they're going to be without T.Y. Hilton again in this one. The Colts at home laying 2.5.
Oh, give me Tennessee. Tannehill's playing well. Derrick Henry's gone off. And, yeah, the Colts, they rush back T.Y. Hilton. He re-aggravates that, hamstring injury. The passing game for the Colts just seems to be non-existent. The defense has played well. Kenny Moore's doing a great job. He's their Mike Hilton over there out of the slot, blitzing and playing good run D. But, man, Tennessee's really come on strong here. I think they're going to ride this hot streak and get the victory.
Yeah, if you're a Steelers fan, I think you're rooting for the Colts in this one because the Steelers have the head-and-head in this one, and Tennessee, look, a loss here I think would really be detrimental to, like I said, whoever loses this game, I would bet on them not making the playoffs for sure. But with all that said, you know what? Give me the Colts to win this by a field goal. Something happens late in this game, some weird turnover, whatnot. Give me the Colts to pull, or actually to win this one outright. I guess it wouldn't be an upset. They're favored by 2.5. So give me the Colts to cover this and cover the 2.5. The Philadelphia Eagles on the road against the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins plus 10 at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Philadelphia in this one. Again, I think Carson Wentz bounces back. I know he's gotten a lot of criticism. It's really been the receivers, though, I think, are the bigger issues. Dan Orlovsky did a great breakdown that kind of pointed out why it's really more on the receivers than it is the quarterback. I know Miami's playing a little bit better, but still, they're still in tank mode for a top 3 pick, and so I'm going to go Philadelphia.
It just feels like Philadelphia should win this one going away. So give me the Eagles on the road, lay the 10 points there. Another big game here. Look, Raiders are in this thing right now as well, too, along with the Steelers. The Steelers are the 6th seed. What are the Raiders? Are the Raiders the 7th?
I think they were 7th. Yeah, I'll have to check.
Let me look real quick what we got here with the Raiders here. I should have this memorized by now. Yeah, the Raiders are the 7th. The like we said, the Colts and Tennessee right there, and Cleveland. It'd be a big win for them. They entered the weekend as the 10th seed here. So it just how many more games can the Raiders lose here? And the answer is not a lot. But with that said, they're going into Kansas City on the road. Rivalry, division game. All that said, man, the Chiefs are favored by 10.
Yeah, I know Oakland's going to want to rebound after that terrible loss last week to the Jets. I'm going to lean Kansas City. I don't feel super confident for the reasons you mentioned. I think the Raiders are going to bounce back. Who's going to have them ready to play, but still on paper it's hard not to go with the Chiefs. And yeah, I think it's just a good point you make, Dave, is that, Buffalo has the wild card spot locked up. They're beating Dallas last night was huge. They're going to be the number 5 seed. That's going to be where they stand. So everyone is now fighting for the number 6 seed. Pittsburgh, the Colts, the Raiders, Cleveland with the outside shot, a much bigger shot if they beat the Steelers on Sunday. So, you're really come down to the wire with everybody fighting for just one basically available wildcard spot. The
only way Steeler fans, I guess, should feel okay maybe coming out of this week with a loss is if, the Raiders lose, if the Titans lose, along those lines. If those couple of things happen there, then it just feels like, okay, run the table and then all is well. Now, that's easier said than done, obviously, but that's where the glimmer of hope will be. I think the Chiefs beat the Raiders at home. However, I'm not sure the Chiefs cover this one, so give me the Raiders plus the 10 on the road in this game. Buccaneers at the Battle of Florida. Buccaneers at Jacksonville Jaguars. Weird line on this one. Jaguars plus 1.5 at home.
Yeah, this one's weird. Jameis Winston's been so up and down this year. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay just because I think they're a more explosive offense when you have weapons like Mike Evans, like Chris Godwin, no Jalen Ramsey for the Jaguars since he's been acquired by the Rams. I don't feel super confident about this one, but essentially a pick 'em. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, this is my stone cold lock of the century of the week. Tampa Bay lay the points, lay the 1.5 on the road against Jacksonville. In a game nobody will watch, New York Jets at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals plus 3.5 at home.
toilet bowl if I've ever seen one. They do have Andy Dalton back this week, which is going to give them a boost. I'm going to go with the Jets in this one, just because I don't know. The Bengals, there's just nothing going for that team right now. Again, I know Dalton's going to make them a more efficient offense, but the Jets have shown a couple signs of life. I'm going to go with New York.
Is this the last really game that how's the bank? Is this the one that they probably have the best chance to win? They got let's see, they had the Browns the following week, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Browns again. I know that Dolphins game probably circled that one as maybe one that they could potentially win there. I obviously don't think they're going to do it. So give me the Jets on the road, lay the 3.5. Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. This one might be a little bit better game than what we think, because the Rams. Boy, you got to go from a team playing in the Super Bowl to now you're wondering if they made the right decision on the quarterback and the running back. Is Gurley going to be there next year with the money he's making? I thought, Aaron Donald, he only had his name called like once, I think, in that game. It was late against the game against the Ravens there. Rams on the road have a chance to get right and maybe save their season, laying 3 against the Cardinals.
Give me Arizona, Dave. I think that you're right. The Rams are in free fall right now. Even a lot of people getting critical of Sean McVay and this team not being able to handle it well in year 2. I guess some people are saying they've kind of been exposed. But yeah, there's just really no semblance of offense with Goff and Gurley. Gurley's doing okay, but you obviously worry about the long-term health, and it hasn't been a great year for him either. And the Cardinals, they're just improving. They're getting better as the season's going on. They're figuring things out. Kingsbury's doing a nice job. Their run game's more established with Kenyon Drake. And so the Cardinals are getting better. The Rams are getting worse. Give me Arizona.
You have to think Arizona, that they have looked at that Baltimore film and said, we can do a lot of those same things.
Right. And also the Steelers see them next week, so they better get ready for the Cardinals.
Yeah. All that said, I think the if the Rams lose this one, they're going to be even more quiet. Rams get right this week. Lay the 3. I just got a gut feeling about it. The other Los Angeles team, the Chargers on the road against the Broncos. Both these teams, obviously, they're out of it. But what's going to happen with Phillip Rivers past this year? He's not under contract right now. He's looked like he's aged all of a sudden there. Chargers on the road against the Broncos, laying 3.
I believe, let me check here, Drew Lock likely to start first ever game this week. We'll see how he does. I'm going to guess that, it's going to be a rough debut for him trying to come in midseason like that off the injury. I'm going to go with the Chargers in this one, though. Again, this will be a game I probably will not watch.
Yeah, does you think the Broncos stick with the coaching staff after one season here, or do you think they swap it up again?
I think they stay for at least another year.
All right, give me Chargers at home on the road, laying the 3 against the Broncos here. That brings us to the Patriots and the Texans. Why does it always seem like sometimes that you go into some of these games and think the Texans, when they play the Patriots, they don't have a chance, but you turn around at the end of the game and they beat the Patriots by a touchdown or
that Romeo Crennel factor, isn't it?
It probably is. I don't know there. Anyway, they're not going to have J.J. Watt, obviously. Patriots on the road. Not playing great on offense, letting these teams hang around a bunch. All that said, Texans plus 3.5 in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go New England. It's just so hard to pick against, even without J.J. Watt. The crazy stat I saw yesterday was, at least before the Thanksgiving games, was that J.J. Watt's still tied for second in the NFL in quarterback hits, only behind T.J. Watt this season. And obviously, J.J. hasn't played in a month. So just the dominance of J.J. Watt, it's just so bummed with all the injuries. That guy would have been – it really is still, but would have been even more one of the greatest players of this generation. And to see him injured is a bummer. But either way, long story short, I'm going to go with the Patriots.
Yeah, I just I think the Patriots do. Gilmore takes away Nuke in this one. Is the way they're going to go. And I'm not convinced that Texans can make enough plays on the other side of football. On either side of football there. So give me the Patriots to lay the 3.5 and win outright, probably by about 10 on this. They get some sort of late turnover that makes this one look lopsided for them this way. Minnesota at Seattle on the Monday night game. This will probably be a little bit better than they're probably not doing a good enough job building this one, but this looks like to be a pretty good game here. Seattle at home, laying 3 on Monday night. That's going to be one ramped up crowd there.
It's hard to go against Seattle at home. Adam Thielen looks up in the air for the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, has been shaky. The run game's been their strength, but I like what Seattle's done this year. I'm going to go with the Seahawks to win by touchdown.
Yeah, Seattle at home to win this one and cover that 3 there. That brings us to started off kind of an evenly matched game, and the deeper you get into the week here, it seems like all the money's going over to the Browns side there. As we sit here right now, the Steelers are rare home underdogs to the Browns, 2.5 points at that. As we said, look, you can effectively, I think, end the Browns season if you beat them here. The whole rematch stuff, this is a big game for both teams, without a doubt. Once again, which way is this going to go? Steelers at home getting 2.5.
This one's really tough, but I just think about how winnable the last matchup was in a game where the Steelers played far from great football. The defense was uncharacteristic in giving up some big plays and having some coverage breakdowns. The offense couldn't do anything. I mean, if you can just even create one turnover, the offense does something more with Devlin Hodges that they couldn't do with Mason Rudolph. You have to think the Steelers, with a better run game, can get the win here. So this is a close one. I'm going to play a little bit of the history game, which I know doesn't matter much, but didn't you have the stat the last time the Steelers were swept by the Browns in the season was 1988? Was that the stat?
Yeah, I was 2 years. Let's see. I graduated in 86. I was yeah.
What were you doing in 1988? That you can legally tell us.
Yes.
No comment. There. I was 5 years from being born in 1988. So I'm going to say the streak continues. The Steelers get the victory here in a very close game. I'm going to go with a Chris Boswell. We'll call it 44-yard field goal as time expires. They beat the Browns 17-16.
You got my score. Damn you.
Really?
That's exactly the way that I have written down right here. Are
you joining me in a Boswell game winner?
I don't know how it happens. Maybe it's a late touchdown or what have you. Look, that 8, you would have to think that the whole focus this week. Well, I know every week the focus is don't turn the football over. Don't turn the football over. You have to know they're talking about this now that it's been 18 games that we've turned the football over at least once. If it goes 19 games, we're not going to win this game. We have to have ball security here in this one. The defense, you have to know they're being talked about. You don't let Baker extend the play this time. If you just don't let him do it this time. We had him the last time. This was a very manageable game. If we get this thing into the fourth quarter once again, maybe it's Baker that makes the mistake for against us. I got a little bit of history going into this one as well too, but I can't help but think too that man, at some point this 18-game streak has got to end, and history tells you just plain and simple in any NFL game, if you don't turn the football over, you got a much better chance to win the game. I think we're going to be talking about yak. I think you're going to be saying, boy, Dave, you talked about yak. Look at the yak that the Steelers got in this game. I think we're going to be talking about a Steelers offensive touchdown that's double or triple explosive. And I think we're going to be talking about the field getting flipped by either the special teams or the defense in this game. So all those things mashed together, I come up with the same exact score as you do, 17-16. That means 33 total points. The over-under on this one is 39. Take the Steelers plus the points, take the Steelers plus the money line, take the Steelers and the Browns in the under. There's your 3-team parlay right there. Right there. I just gave everybody Christmas money there. You're welcome.
And you're talking about a trick play too. You think that's one's going to be?
I think it could. Yeah, I think all that. We'll find out just how smart or how full of doo-doo Dave is after this game, which is probably a lot.
I'm predicting, game-winning field goals over here, so I could be just as wrong as you are. But hey, we're both with the Steelers 17-16 win, and again, by any means necessary. Don't care how they win. Don't care if it's ugly, pretty, whatever. Who has to step up and make a play, get the victory, end the Browns season, get yourself one step closer to getting that 6th wild card spot.
Okay, Jeremy Barbati writes in regarding the folks. Don't use the contact form on the website, please. You're lucky I got this one, Jay. You send your emails to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com if you want them read on the show. If you want to get a hold of us, something else related to the site. Be creative in the comment. Anyway, I caught this. This is regarding the Game Pass International. I've been routing through Mexico for I think 3 or 4 years since domestic doesn't do live games. Mexico works perfectly. I don't know if he means getting the coach's tape immediately after the game. I mean, yeah, I know it works fine for watching the games live and all like that via VPN and all like that. All right, Andy Manley writes in, love the podcast and the website. You guys are great with the X's and O's, which the Pittsburgh radio jocks do not understand. Thanks. Question about the comments out of Cleveland regarding Mason's inability to read a cover 2 defense. Do you believe this? And if it's true, why did it take till 12 weeks for any mention of this? Is this also the reason of passing between the hashes is subpar? Happy belated Thanksgiving. Thank you, Andy, for that. Knowing what I think I know, I think it's a bunch of garbage that Mason doesn't know the difference between cover 2 or what have you. But obviously, I mean, we're just going off what we see off the tape.
Yeah, I don't know if they were talking about a specific play or if they were just trying to have the overall point that he was just struggling to read a defense. I think his progressions and his eyes were problemsome, or what's the word there? Troublesome, I guess I should say. Problematic, I think was the word I was looking for. So obviously he was struggling to read a defense. I mean, the guy obviously can read cover 2. I mean, the guy look at the points and yards and everything that he scored to put up at Oklahoma State. So it's not that he has terrible football IQ. I just think he was having that deer in the headlights kind of view, where I'm sure he was missing some stuff, but I think it might be those comments were, to me, a little too strong.
Look, NFL defenses do a great job, depending on who you face, sometimes of making a coverage look like one thing and it being the other thing. So has there been instances along the way this year with him thinking it's going to be one thing and it ends up being another? Sure. I mean, that's going to happen. To think that he just doesn't know straight out cover 2, I think that's a little bit strong, and shame on Ryan Clark, I think, is the one that's kind of been moving forward with this. And maybe this is just a Browns defensive guys trying to have a little more fun with Mason Rudolph and make him, I don't know. I just think it's a little absurd to think that a guy, like Mason Rudolph doesn't know the difference between cover 2. Has he misdiagnosed maybe a couple things, and maybe specifically in that game against the Browns? Yeah. I mean, look, you start thinking about other things other than what you maybe should be thinking of. Pressing, there is a situation of that, but I'm not buying the overall general narrative that's being pushed on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
Bryce writes in, big game against the Clowns. Let's see, can't wait for this game Sunday. Nothing happier than ending the Clowns' playoff hopes. A couple questions. Definitely agree with Tom that defense has to contain Mayfield in the pocket. Specifically, they need to follow the strategy that Aqib Talib laid out a couple of weeks ago on Fox Sports. Do not let Mayfield escape to his right. TJ has to continue to bring it, but be more disciplined in his rushes. The second game, keep Mayfield in the pocket going to his left. This will be a precursor to also containing Josh Allen. Same strategy, keep him in the pocket, not going. Yeah, look, I mean, just general overall, we've seen Mayfield make plays the other way. Obviously, it's going to be more natural to him moving out to his right. But, I mean, just in general, you've got to do a better job of keeping him in the pocket and really just, not just keeping him in the pocket, getting to him and making something happen there with him. Number 2, if Snell and White Jr. can run effectively, should the Steelers use Jalen Samuels more as an inside slot guy on third down spread formations, with the Steelers needing to use every weapon they can? It seems they can add a lot of value in that role. Your thoughts? I don't know how often I want to go into you in this one.
Yeah, when you do, the Browns are going to stress the protection with Finney at center, Hodges at quarterback. I'm probably not going to do that a lot, but I understand the idea when you don't have Juju out. You're trying to look at some interior guys that can make some plays in the pass game. That's where he's going to do most of his damage. So a point taken. Maybe you have some pony stuff, maybe 2 or 3 snaps of that I can see. Maybe have a tight end in the backfield to help block things up. I don't know, but I understand the overall point about that. And to the first question about keeping Baker within the pocket, I know that this defense wants to go after the football. They want to create splash plays, but I think where they have to kind of just take the sack, as if that's a bad thing, it's certainly not. They can't go for the strip sack maybe quite as often this time around because you don't want to miss the sack. Bud Dupree talked about how last week they missed a couple sacks on Ryan Finley because they went after the football. I think this time, as much as you want to rip the football out and how important that is, it's more important to get Mayfield on the ground. So maybe just get the sack and get him on the ground. That's how you can play better defense as opposed to being so very ball aggressive.
I don't care if we see Jalen Samuels carry the ball one damn time in this game. Yep. To be honest with you, now he maybe he makes me look like a fool, and they come in and they run some of those ones. The most success he had against the Patriots was running those counters where he's taking the step at the snap of the football to his right, and then following a pulling guard or a split zone or something back to the other side. It's really the only, and that's pretty much because Belichick let him have it too. I'm convinced. In that, to me, if you get off to a hot start with Snell and White, and once again, we're looking for a 45% or higher success rate early on in this game. I just don't, if it remains close, yeah, you can stick to the run. But I think you're going to get a good gauge early on as to how this Steelers offense can run. If Snell and White are the hot hands, man, I'm not pulling them out of the game for anybody here. I have confidence that Snell can pass pro. Maybe as Alex said earlier in the show, maybe you do something to get the ball out. Maybe White's the one that you want the ball out in space somehow. With there, take advantage of his speed. I want to attack the edge. One thing we haven't really seen a lot of really since I think week one with this team is those crack tosses. And I know it's not a popular thing the way Todd Haley used them in down and distance situations or whatnot pass, but if there's one thing that Vance McDonald knows how to do is it's that short motion from the outside in and doing that crack. I want to see them young corners and safe and really inexperienced, because they're not going to have they're not going to have Morgan Burnett in this one either, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a good point, right? 20 Achilles.
Yeah, let's see them guys crack and replace.
It's a good point.
So, Alex has written, I think he's got a breakdown or two, unfortunately, going the other direction there with Artie Burns, but go search that out on Steelers.
God, you just gave me some PTSD for that Chicago Bears game, in OT a couple years ago.
Let's see them crack and replace with them young guys on the other side there, right?
Yeah, make Greedy Williams play good run defense. I know he had the tackle on Connor in the first matchup, but Connor was playing on one shoulder and wasn't playing himself. But yeah, corners are always the weakness in run defense. So if you can attack them and block those safeties, you should get some good gainers. I mean, Snell's one big run came off of the corner one-on-one. He beat the corner and turned that into a 21-yard gain.
I mean, generally in those type situations, if a crack and replace is not, if it's blocked up right and a crack and replace is not performed right by the defense, it usually comes into a one-on-one situation where all you have to do is make one guy miss, right?
Yeah, well, even if the defense does everything right, there's just no choice. The way the offense is blocking it is leaving the cornerback one-on-one because they're going to crack the safety and make the corner replace it and play have that run fit. So, if you get it back one-on-one with the corner, I mean, that should be easy money as an offense.
So there you go. Maybe we're talking about a crack and replace big, a crack toss or something along those lines that goes for a big gain in that. What's the other point he makes up in here? When Myles Garrett suspended, I feel this game where the Steelers offensive line can really get on track collectively. I think they're better than the Browns front seven and should be able to win a line of scrimmage. Agree, disagree. Why? Look, Alejandro Villanueva's probably felt pretty decent on Thanksgiving because Garrett really schooled him that last time around there. The point that Alex made in the early show about Richardson and Ogunjobi against I think the Steelers can block that up still with Finley. I mean with BJ Finney in this one.
Yeah, I think they can. I just think that Finney has there's some issues there because the more powerful interior line. I mean, the Pouncey has had the same issue too. I guess a lot of centers do because they're generally more undersized. But yeah, this team can still have run success. They should be able to run the football. Snell can get downhill, run hard, wear down that defense. Those things are all still possible even with Finney at center.
And yet another reason to run left at the Browns. Who's gonna play on that side? You know?
Yeah, I don't even know. Is it Chad Thomas? Is it? I mean, Vernon. We'll have to see what his health, his status is. But yeah, I mean, that obviously they're losing their best defensive player without Myles Garrett.
So I run at him and I crack him.
There you go. I like it.
I think that could be that and them missing their left tackle could end up being huge talking points in this game here. Let's
Just
see.
the left side everything.
Yeah.
Left tackle, left side of the offensive line.
Yeah, look, the Steelers ran good to that side. Again, I'm not saying that they will again, but I think even going into that last game against the Browns, my general consensus was they should be able to run on that group, and they should be able to run to the Steelers left to the Browns right, and even more so without Myles Garrett in this game. Christopher Jones writes in, given the expectations, has Vance McDonald been the team's biggest disappointment this year? Why do you believe he has struggled so much? Do you just hope he improves or consider drafting a guy to replace him? I don't know if he's been the biggest disappointment this year, but make no mistake about it, when we thought Ben was going to be healthy going into this season, I had the feeling that this could be a 60-catch, 700-yard, 6-touchdown season for McDonald. I think where he's disappointed me, look, you can't control if you're not being thrown to, but he's been a disappointment to me in a running game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I understand some of the circumstances have hurt McDonald's numbers, but who would be a bigger disappointment than him? I mean, defense, it's really hard to choose anybody. I mean, Terrell Edmonds hasn't been what I thought he would be, but probably not as big a disappointment as McDonald. I don't know. He'd be up there. He'd be top 3 at worst in terms of if I had to list them.
Well, Juju obviously not putting up the numbers, and Connor, even when Ben went down, probably would have envisioned. But yeah, I mean, look, you could definitely circle him, and based on what we expected him to have versus to what the reality is. I mean, he's only getting even targeted 2 or 3 times a game, and part of McDonald's game, unfortunately, is drops.
Right. He had that one a couple weeks ago,
and he's had those.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean. Alex probably disagrees with him, but I think he's a guy you got to take a hard look at during the off season, especially if you're gung ho on. I mean, look, his contract ain't gonna kill you. We'll see what they do with Vinette. I don't think they, Gentry. What is Gentry right now? We don't even know what that is. What is? But yeah, big disappointment when it comes to McDonald overall, top to bottom there. One other one here from Michael Smith writes in, it's going to be cold and rainy on Sunday. Does that help the Steelers cold and rainy on Sunday? If indeed that's going to be the case, or does it matter?
I don't know if it matters a whole lot. I mean, obviously when you get the run game going, maybe a slight advantage, but it's not the reason I'll be talking about whether they win or lose this game.
He goes on to write, I believe Devlin has small hands and played in the Alabama climate. Let me tell you, the Alabama climate's humid, man.
Devlin Hodges has small. You know Devlin Hodges' hand size?
I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't think they're Alex Smith size, are they?
I mean, what bowl game was he in that he would have gotten his hands measured?
I don't know.
I mean, he was a small guy overall, so I guess maybe, but I have no idea. I mean, I'd love to know the number.
I guess we're generalizing there in the same way that Tony Romo broke out yesterday to the Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola comparisons for Cole Beasley.
Right. Some random website says 9 1/4 hand size, which isn't huge, but it's not bad. It's not a concern. Passes the test.
Anyway, he wants to know, do you think he'll go Roethlisberger and wear a glove on his throwing hand? Maybe get some advice from Ben. Great show and love. He loves the ad-free version, Michael Smith does on the site. Thank you, Michael.
I have no idea. I mean, I barely know a whole lot about Hodges' game in general, let alone his apparel and glove or not. So he's played in rainy games before. I mean, it's not like rain's new to him. I'm sure he's played in some less than great. Alabama can get cold too. It's not always 70 degrees down there. I remember being down there for some Senior Bowl game practices where it's freezing. It's like 35 degrees. So I don't know what his apparel is going to be, but I'm sure he'll take care of it. He'll figure it out.
Look, I'm born and raised in what we like to call Lower Alabama, basically, is where I'm from. Even though the part of Florida is more Alabama than it is Florida from where I'm from. And some of the coldest winters I've gone through have gone right there in Northwest Florida, because that's a cold, damp cold.
Right on the water,
it
right?
bites. man. You want to talk about you go outside and your feet hurt. That's there. So look, I don't know. I gotta be honest, Mike. I don't know how he's gonna address this. So we'll just have to see if there's any signs of that during pregame.
What's the coldest weather you've ever been in? Have you been in like a northeast snowstorm or winter?
Oh
before?
yeah, man. We've gone up to Detroit and all before,
Okay.
and spent time there. And look, I mean, we've had some pretty damn below freezing temperatures over the years. Over 40 years in Pensacola as well too. So
Gotcha.
I look, we don't like them. That's why we moved out to the desert out here.
Right.
I don't mind the crisp mornings out here. And look, last year, I think it was this past February, we had that weird kind of unique snowstorm where it didn't feel like it was even cold enough to snow. But we had, it snowed a ton. It was those large kind of snowflakes as well too. I don't mind going through that every once in a while, but I just hate days upon days of make your feet hurt, and I don't see how you people go out and have to shovel your damn driveway and your car out just to get out of the damn driveway. But anyway, Nicholas writes in, Nicholas Francois Shank. I think he's emailed this guy has a name belongs in an action movie, like a Stallone.
I think he said that before.
Action movie. Nicholas, have you ever seen Cobra with
I remember you asked the question. It starts with, "Have you ever seen?" My answer is gonna be no. I've never even heard of Cobra, which I know is gonna hurt you. I've never even heard of that movie.
You never have seen? Let's see, Cobra.
That's a Stallone movie.
Stallone movie, yeah.
Unless it's Rocky, I haven't seen the Stallone
Cobra,
movie.
1986. I was a senior in high school. That's a great movie. I forgot. I haven't seen that one in a while.
That's right in the height of 80s action movies, right?
Yeah. That was a great movie with Stallone, like a former police cop or whatnot. Stallone's done some great ones other than Rocky, or other than Rambo and Rocky. He's done some great early, action kind of movies, and I'll make sure you add that one to your Christmas list there. But,
were you all the action guys? Who was that? There was Die Hard, Bruce Willis, Claude Van Damme. Was that?
Obviously, I was Stallone, Bruce Willis, which no, that's not a Christmas movie.
Oh yes, it is.
No,
I'll go to war for that one.
No, it's not. I wasn't huge into Steven Seagal,
right?
Claude Van Damme, kind of thing. Schwarzenegger, obviously. Get to the chopper. You've probably never seen Predator either, have you?
I've never seen Predator. I know I should. Everyone's gonna hate me now for this one, but never seen Predator.
Get to the chopper. Yeah, those were the action guys I grew up with there. Nicholas, cool name. Francois. He even has the funny looking C with the, what do you call that funny looking C with the kind of the mark on it?
The accent? I don't know the actual term.
You don't know the symbol? You went to college
I didn't go to a smart college.
Money at Clarion, and you don't know what that funny looking C is?
Cheapest public college I could find.
Nicholas Francois Shank. Great name, Nicholas. You're going to have to email us some more. Hi, Dave and Alex. Rapid fire question here. Would like both of you to name the team this year that can beat anyone, but also lose to anyone. Browns or Lions would have to be my pick. So up and down. Can be really good and beat anyone, but can be really bad and lose to anyone. Popcorn order coming up soon. I think the Nerds one is what I got my craving. All right, good nice. Deal. Our buddy Dave will like that. Got quite a few people let us know they got some popcorn for Dave, so thank you for that. How about the Colts?
Yeah, I was thinking Packers. Colts is a good one too.
The Rams. I mean, how much is there? A lot of parity right now in the league. I mean, look at even the Patriots, man. They've scored 17 points a week right now. It really does feel like we live in a time where any team can maybe beat any team. Look what the Lions did, and look what the Bills did. The funny thing about the Bills, I said we're going to find out about the Bills during the final 5 weeks there. Even after that game yesterday, I still wonder who the Bills are, because the Bills went into that game, if my knowledge is right on this, not having beat a team with a winning record at the time that they played them. Now, they beat a team in the Cowboys that had a winning record, but they beat a team in the Cowboys that had not beat a team with a winning record. It feels like, yes, that was just setting us up to get sucked into some giant black hole with kind of that statement there. But look, the Bills are right there. 9 wins. I mean, are you kidding me? All they need is one more, and they should be in, right?
Yeah, I mean, call them whatever you will. I call them a future playoff team, and that's all that really matters right now.
But look at their schedule. You know, they got
Pats.
They got the Pats. They got the Ravens.
Yeah.
They got the Steelers and the Jets, right?
They'll beat the Jets, though, so that's going to almost certainly get them in off of that alone.
All right. So, and obviously if the Steelers don't beat the Bills, look out. But anyway, so I think that's got you handled right there, Nicholas Francois Shank. All right, with that, it's a good place to stop there. Hope you enjoyed this episode here. We will be back at it Monday, win or lose, and hopefully we're talking about a Steelers win there. In the meantime, you can email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter @SteelersDepot. You can follow Alex @Alex_Kozora. Follow the show @TerriblePodcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. If you like the ad-free version, a lot of people are taking advantage of that. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar for $25. For 1 calendar year, you can have access to SteelersDepot.com with ad-free. Appreciate Scott Petrak for sitting in with us again as well, too. Make sure you reach out to him, and thank you. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.